Hello everyone, good to see you guys. It's Monday and I'm back to work. And today was a really good day. I prayed for today to actually be like not a crazy day, because last week my work days, I feel like, sometimes when you just go to work and it's just like non-stop for like too long and you just get exhausted and it's honestly too much. So that's kind of what last week was, and your girl had to recover, so I was really grateful. I got a couple days off and I rested. I didn't push myself too hard, just understanding that I might need a lot in the tank for these next 2 days, given how busy it has been. It's been so, I think it's just because it's flu season as well. There's a lot of elders coming in with the flu, and it's funny what happens. People will come to the hospital for one problem and they will get, the flu will be like incidentally found because they also have a cough, but they're complaining of something else. It's just kind of funny how it all works. But well, I've been seeing a lot of influenza A going around, and these people, they've been hospitalized, needing oxygen, needing IV fluids and things just to kind of get back on their feet. And I think that's been, it's just well known. This is flu season, and I haven't seen any COVID at all since the fall, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, today I was just reflecting on how much I feel like I've been learning and what that's been doing for me as like an RN and my confidence level and what I've been needing interpersonally. I think sometimes we get into these seasons where we need like a refresh. Like we really need to be refreshed by the Lord, be refreshed in our perspective of how things are going. And there are things, I'll be honest with you, there are things that I've been praying for years, and just challenging situations I have been finding myself in, even though I'm so blessed and God has blessed me like with what I believe are the most important things that I've prayed for. There are still things in my life that I have been praying for that I know would be a good thing if God gave me those things. But I'm still waiting, and sometimes in the waiting you can get really in your feelings, and like you can get weary, you can get like a little bit bitter, if I'm being honest. And at least for me, so maybe that speaks to somebody else watching today where you're going through like a long waiting period. That is me right now with something specific in my life. I've got a couple situations where I'm just waiting for the situation to transform. And it's a long haul, but I think that these situations, when you are in them, you have an opportunity to either, I guess, become bitter, your attitude be very negative and your outlook on life to change. And I watched that happen with family members where they had one thing that really devastated them and they never really were the same ever again. And for me to see that as a young girl, I vowed to myself, I think I made like a personal vow, I never want to be so hard-hearted and so unforgiving and so just rigid in my perspective, and not even leave any space for maybe God's best to come through. I don't want to be that person. So this situation that I'm in and being able to, come into this new department and learn so many new things has shaken me up and allowed me to almost have a renewal, but it was not expected. I didn't expect it to happen this way. In fact, when I got this job, I was concerned that it was going to take so much that I might not be able to give it. And I don't know if that was a fuzz or a bug, but it keeps flying around and I'm scared it's going to go in my mouth. Oh my gosh. Isn't that the worst when that happens? Or your eye? Things get stuck in my eyes all the time. But yeah, I would love to hear if anybody watching has had an experience where they experienced a blessing or a refreshing, a renewal, regardless of what you believe, religiously, spiritually, has a situation that you've been in. Have you found renewal in that, even if you didn't expect it to? Like this ICU opportunity, it it was one that I prayed for. I'm so grateful. And to be able to transition into the department and the type of nursing that I've been wanting to for so long has been, just another testimony to God's goodness. And I think just because at the end of the day, there are, sometimes there's people who feel content and just happy in the same type of nursing department their whole career. For me, I've found I found myself to need like new challenges and new things to learn and new ways to help people to continue to feel like I'm achieving and reaching my potential as a person in my career. So that's been really great. And I know that it's like the relationships and the connections that I've developed. I pay attention to these things and I don't think that anything is random. So I'm excited to see what God is going to do in this role just throughout time. So that's been something I've been thinking about. It's given me new confidence and a new ability to communicate, because in the ICU you have to communicate really well to be able to understand what the doctor wants, to understand what the patient wants when they can communicate with you. Sometimes they have a breathing tube in their throat, so they can't communicate verbally, and you have to rely on other means of communication, like yes or no answers, like writing on tablets, all those types of things. It's just different. So I think thinking in new ways and opening up new channels in my mind and just learning has allowed me to feel like almost my mood has improved, even though there's no such thing. I don't believe that life is easy. I believe life is very trying and challenging and full of ways that it tests you. I think that I have been through a ton of them, and I'm really just reflecting on how this opportunity has given me a new perspective. So that's been really great. And today I was able to spend a little bit more time with my patients and be a little bit more like, I don't want to say slow paced because that wouldn't be the right way to say it. I think it's been like I could sit there and listen instead of just immediately leaving the room to go do something else. My patients could talk to me. One of my patients today, both of them transferred from med-surg overnight. They became unstable. One of them was, now get this, many people would think, unless you're trained, unless you're experienced, oxygen helps when somebody is struggling to get their oxygen. Is that right or is that wrong? I think many people would say yes, it helps, and even some nurses don't get this right. But when somebody has been a smoker for decades of their life, they can develop a condition called COPD, which can make them, actually, it's almost like their lungs loosen and the tissue doesn't allow you to exhale properly anymore. Exhale the carbon dioxide, because we'll inhale oxygen and we exhale carbon dioxide, but with COPD, you can't get that carbon dioxide out as easily. So they do this thing called retain. It's known as retaining carbon dioxide because they can't exhale it, and that can make you have an acid-base imbalance and make you actually have changes to your level of alertness. Now, the reason that the patient didn't do so good up on med-surg is because they put a certain type of oxygen mask on the patient that allows them to rebreathe their CO2, which unfortunately did not help the patient, and they needed to be on a special mask called a BiPAP, which allows you to exhale CO2 a little bit better and helps you breathe. He needed that mask, and he improved so quickly, and that was really great. So I had him today, and he was a really sweet patient. And then I also had an elderly woman who was very, very sweet, who had a bowel obstruction and a tube down her nose to help relieve some of that excess gastric fluid collection and reduce nausea from all of that stuff in there not moving through. So yeah, both of them had a lot of anxiety, so I was working on making them feel comfortable with their medications, and we had a pretty good day. I feel like today was what I needed. I prayed for a day like today, and I'm so glad that God delivered, because you know, there's nothing wrong with a good, solid ICU day, but sometimes things can just be so busy. And one thing that I don't like about the hospital environment, and you guys know this from my past vlogs, is sometimes when it's so busy, you get pulled in so many different directions, and you're in the middle of trying to do all these critical things with medication and make sure that you're not missing anything. And you have to work really hard not to get distracted and not be in a place where you're missing things. And that's one thing that I think I've also said this, but the sticky notes that we find all over, just reminding us of things that we need to jot down before we get pulled in another direction. It's just the way it is. And if you are a loved one of a nurse and they work 12 hours or whatever type of setup, even 8-hour shifts, just know, like, they've been multitasking and being interrupted all day. And to give them some grace if they don't want to talk at the end of the day because they're just so tired of being pulled in one direction or another for 12 hours. Some days it's just nonstop. And I'm so grateful that today wasn't like that. Today was more about, like, making sure my patients weren't getting antsy and oxygenation was staying healthy. But I was really grateful that I could take some time to move at, like, a more realistic pace, one that didn't feel like I was just missing so much ability to recharge even on my breaks. Sometimes you get your breaks, but it just doesn't feel as restful as you need it to because of the nature of your day. So I'm glad. Yeah. There's been a lot of sick patients in our ICU lately too. I keep wanting to know what happened to them when I come back to work and they're no longer there. When they were on 4 pressors and they needed all this support, like, I want to know what happened to them. But yeah, it's just interesting. Real quick, if you are in the medical field or, you know, wherever you're listening from, put in the comments what you're up to today, where you work. Share a situation that happened to you today at work. Good or bad, whatever. I'm headed home. I'm trying to figure out what we're going to eat this evening. My husband was texting me about what we're going to eat, and I have no idea what's in the fridge. He always has something ready for us when I get back. So I think he got pretty tired today. He's been really busy at work too. Yeah, but I'm back again tomorrow, and this is the first day that I will be having the same, well, what I think I'll be having the same patients again tomorrow when I go back, but I think they're probably not going to stay in the ICU with me. One of them's for sure probably going to transfer out if they have a good night, and the other one, it just depends on her heart rate, what happens to that, and if she's stable enough to come off of the medication that she needs to stabilize her heart rate, because that's why she transferred to us. Ativan is such a magical medication for some people. Like, sometimes it literally fixes all the things that they're complaining about. Like, that happened today. It's just so different. how it affects certain people, but I guess we'll have to see. And with that, you guys, I'm almost home, and I can't wait to get a good night's sleep thinking about you, and I pray that whatever situations you're finding yourself in at work, that God is with you and going before you. All right, take care. Good night.